you're saying going into a new country, but I bet you also have that right now in terms of different generations.
Yes.
And so making sense of, the new generation starting, what do they care for? What's important for them? They might not want to have then X number of cars and whatever else. Someone higher up in the organization think that they want. So, like for you to talk a little bit about also that, but perhaps also bring in how do we sense, you talked a little bit about flooding and everything else, and we are seeing Mother Nature sending us invoices. We are seeing changes. We are seeing pollution. How do we as leaders also sense what does that mean for both our employees, but also for who can we attract in the future, and how can we keep the workplace safe and have those people that we need there, or do we need to move the workplace to a place that's less polluted or less in danger, which then comes up to a whole other stew of issues. So generation kind of like, and then more the environmental impact and nature.
Generations is a tough one. I must tell you, when I was working in Singapore as a CEO of a large family managed business, I used to deal with 4 generations simultaneously. And in Singapore, the retirement age is much later. And so I was dealing with 4 generations, and it was not easy. It was not easy. And particularly the Gen Z or baby boomers, but I don't want to get into that definitions, but the latest the latest arrivals on the world or whatever, Gen Zs and millennials and all those things, you are absolutely right. Their motivation is different than our motivation or my motivation. How do I understand that? And I will tell you one simple example, which how I made a mistake on that. I was running a very large manufacturing company in Singapore. And in shop floor, once I was taking a plant route tour, and I saw that many of my plant operators were using mobile phone and working on, Facebook and this and, all those social media. I, as a CEO, I called my chief operating officer and I told him that, see, I'm seeing the efficiency, productivity has gone down. People are using mobile phones and they're busy in social media. This is not acceptable. Typical CEO pitch. So my COO goes and bans or he stops the Wi-Fi network within the plant operations. Imagine what would have happened. I had to restart it within 4 hours. So this is again a generation, and this is across all the generations, by the way. This was not only young generation, this was all the generations who are working in shop floor. Everyone was hooked on to that social media thing. But that's again a culture of that country. So these are simple things that you need to understand each generation what they want, how they want. But I would say how to work together, that's more challenging than what motivates them. Calling your plant manager or calling your finance head who is from X gen and then calling your young management trainees from other generation, making them sit together, making them work together as a team, that's a big challenge. So I think that is going to continue. We all need to be prepared. The average lifespan of human beings, as you know, is increasing. So obviously we need to ensure that we all have work and we have to work together. And there are different ways and means and psychological theories. And nowadays we call psychological safety and psychological capital and all those things. So that's one aspect. Second aspect, you asked me about the way we work, the world at which we work from a sustainability point of view and from a I remember that 7 generation principles, which by the way you have also mentioned in your book. I remember that very well, that whatever we do, we need to do to ensure that it lasts for next 7 generations at least, positively helps. So that's one basic principle. Second thing, what interesting part I am seeing is I do a lot of startup mentoring to SMEs and all those things. A lot of young companies, they are very well aware of the sustainability and environment and all this. I mean, they are proactively, even though the ESG compliance and all those things is not applicable to them, they are proactively taking those steps and saying that, hey, we want to be carbon neutral, or we want to be environmentally free company. We don't want to waste, and all those. But some minuscule of percentage of that. But what I'm saying, that change is happening. That's number one. Number two, you recruit new people in today's world, the young generation. They are very well aware of these type of things. Means I have done a skills interview. I spoken about the new skills required and to the young generation. Some of the areas what we have seen is that new generation does not want to work in the companies where the environmental aspect is neglected. So your ability to hire a talent gets limited if you are not following the environmental principles in your organization. Now, how many leaders know this? So that's another aspect. Third thing, I think I always say that environmental sustainability and all those is not because you have to do a compliance. It has to come from within. The moment you look at it as a tick box that, oh, I have completed this form, I have submitted to my stock exchange, or then it is post-mortem. You have to proactively start thinking, how can I do changes in my organization? And I'm not going to scope one, scope two, scope three, that's far out, but I'm saying in general, as an organization, and how often do you discuss sustainability as a concept within your organization? And that's my big question to all my audience. And whenever I go in any organization, even IRL as a global chair, first thing I open is that, what are we doing on environmental and sustainability? Can you tell me 3 things what we have done in last 3 months? In a board meeting, I asked that question. Do all organizations need to start with that question at the beginning of their meeting? Like we ask the question, what are your values of the company, or what's your vision of the company? What percentage of revenue growth we got? You also need to ask, what are we doing on environmental aspect, or what are we doing on sustainability side? Now, unless you ask that question, it is not going to create an impact in the minds of people. So creating awareness is, according to me, a responsibility of a leader as far as sustainability and environment is concerned, climate change is concerned. I see not many things happening on that side. That's unfortunate part of it. Very few leaders really talk about the sustainability and environmental aspect. And of course, competent boards is doing a great job by training leaders, by making them aware, not only at a particular stage, but at different levels of the organization. And I'm happy that knowledge awareness is being created on that front.
Any last thoughts? Any last advice?
Say one very important thing in the entire leadership, and which I always talk, is we as a leader needs to create a trust, right? And if you do not create a trust, and trust applies everywhere, be it a trust on a sustainability side, be it a trust on performance side, be it a trust on compliance side, or be it a trust on raising your numbers, profitability, and all those things. So creating this trust has become, according to me, very, very important in this social media-driven world. It's very easy, and there is a famous Dutch proverb, you may know it, trust arrives on the foot and leaves on the horseback, right? Very famous Dutch proverb. What I'm seeing in today's world, this trust is getting diluted, right? Even though in management we talk, a leader should walk the talk and all big things we do, but the social media is polluting this trust aspect. So a leader needs to ensure that that trust is maintained, created on a continuous basis, and look at stakeholders' perspective. And I remember stakeholder is not only your investor or not only your shareholder, right? The definition of stakeholder has gone through a multiple dimensional change in the last 15, 20 years, and you know it much better than I know it. As a leader, we all need to ensure that we are equally responding to all the stakeholders, and we are not creating the barriers among the stakeholders that he's my priority, he's my priority number 2, or she's my priority number. No, all stakeholders are equally important. So these are some of the thoughts I thought as a trust, raising the trust. And other thing is, which I always quote this, and I'm not again trying to quote it, but as a leader, we also need to continuously enhance our knowledge, our ability to managed multiple businesses. And a famous quote by Rumi, yesterday I was clever, I wanted to change the world, and I'm wise today, I'm changing myself. So try to change yourself at every point of time.